As you know, data comes in many different formats. We have PDF files, we have text files, we have CSV files, we have documents, we have all these different unstructured formats that data comes in before we put the data through large language models with AI and all the great stuff that we know about. And so in this video, I'm going to focus on how to take CSV files and create an agent that is able to converse with that CSV file data. So the idea is that you have an agent, and in the middle you will have a large language model, and then we have the CSV file. So the CSV file is the data. This data is actually passed through a language model that will be able to make sense of this data. So the agent is able to work with the large language model to make sense of this data in the CSV file format. So now you can then we can ask questions to the agent, which knows how to extract information along with the large language model, so that we can get the answers or results that we're looking for. So it's a powerful use case because, as you know, your organization or you may be working with large amounts of CSV files, and you want to be able to interface or have an agent that is able to speak or talk to your CSV file so that you can just type questions using natural language and get the results, get the questions answered about that CSV file. And so let's go ahead and get started with that. Now we're going to look at CSV agents. So essentially a way of interacting with CSV data. So we're going to be able to extract CSV file data and use OpenAI model along with LangChain to create our CSV agent and interact with the CSV tabular data. So let's look at the whole process or the whole overview of what we're going to be looking into. So in your organization, you may be working with a lot of data, or you have a department that works with a lot of data, in this case CSV files and so forth. So the need to analyze data from CSV files, which you can do manually, of course, right, directly. That's what most people do. But because you know about agents now, then we can actually use something. In this case, we can use an agent in between here using LangChain, of course, that will interact with the data, in this case, the CSV tabular data on our behalf. Now we can ask questions to the agent, and the agent would be responsible for extracting, analyzing, and formulating a nice answer back to you. So this is what we will be doing next. So we're going to be building an agent that interacts with tabular data, CSV in this case, so that we can prompt, so pass in queries to the agent, and the agent will take care of the rest. Okay, you notice that I created a new folder directory here called data, and we have this salaries 2023. Now I got this CSV file as an example that contains this department name, division, gender, base salary, overtime pay. So all of this data for a company of some sort. Okay, so this is what we're going to be using. You can use other CSV files that you may want to use, of course, in your organization or in your project. But this is what we're going to be using here, and you will have access to that. Okay, so I have that, and next what I'll do, I'm going to right click and create a new file, which I'm going to call CSV agent.py as such. Okay, it's going to be pretty much the same as we had before in terms of the imports and so forth. So I'm going to go ahead and import a few things here. So first I'm importing, of course, the LangChain schema, human and system messages as you saw before, and then OS, and then I have .env, LangChain, again, OpenAI, and I'm also importing pandas. Make sure that we have pandas, and that should be or should have been installed already when we installed in the beginning, okay, this dependency. So pandas 2.2.2, 2.2.2, all right. And of course, next I'm going to load the env, OpenAI key, and create our model here. Nothing new. Read the CSV file. And to read the CSV file, all we do is say data frame, we put in a variable, and we use our pandas and say read CSV. Now, this is not going to work because I put that in a folder called data. So I need to go to that. So how do we do that? We go to our data folder, go to salaries, get CSV, and then I'm going to say fill not available. So if we find anything that if we find any row that doesn't have a value, we're going to just add a value ourselves, assign a value of 0. Now we've read our CSV file using pandas. Now let's go ahead and print real quick our at least 5 rows that are hopefully returned to tell us that this is actually working. Let's go ahead and save this and run. If all goes well, we should see some data. There we go. We can see that we have at least 5 rows and 8 columns, which tells us that indeed this is working and we're able to get information from our CSV file. So we know that we are able to extract the information from our CSV file. Exciting. Next, let me go ahead and comment this out. And what we'll do next is we're going to create the actual agent. Now, the beauty here is that we can again we are going to use LangChain to create our agent. There we go. So what I'm doing here is I am using LangChain experimental namespace and get agent toolkits, and I'm going to import the create pandas data frame agent. So this is an agent, if you have over, that has all of the information needs to create an actual agent, a data frame agent. And then I am also importing from the experimental namespace agents toolkit the create CSV agent. Now I could have just done this in just one line, of course, that's much easier, and just get rid of that. So that is the same thing and it all works. All right, very good. So once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and create the actual agent. To create the actual agent, I'm just going to put in a variable, agent. I'm going to use the create. I can have 2 options here. I can use the create CSV agent or create pandas data frame agent like this. And in this case, I'm going to use this one. And you can see if you hover over, there are a few things we need to pass along. We need to pass the large language model, the data frame, right? The actual data that we pulled in, and we can pass the agent type if we want to, and so forth, as well as verbose to true or false to say we want to see as the agent works to see the reasoning and everything. We'll see in a second. First, I'm going to pass the large language model, which is going to be our model we created at the top. So then the data frame, so just df, I'm going to pass that df, and verbose, it's going to be true. So what I'm saying here is that I want to pass the large language model because, of course, the agent needs to have the large language model, because the agent needs to have a large language model attached to it so that it can work with it to get the answer. That's the whole idea. And we have passed the actual data, right? We created the F here. We're pulling read the CSV file and so forth. And then verbose true. Verbose true, that means we want to be able to see in console here the reasoning of our agent as it runs. Okay, so that's it. So we've created our agent, CSV agent. So now I can just say agent invoke, that's the function to invoke something, right? Passing a query. So I can just put here, I can say input if I want and add something, or I can just go ahead and add the query. I can say what is the average salary? And let's see. Now I want to see the result, and let's go ahead and print that result. All right, let's go ahead and run and see what will happen. So now the agent is going to go ahead and see entering new execution. It was really quick because the idea was that the question was very simple in its essence, but you can see here the power. The agent went ahead, entered this executors chain, and look at this. We have the thought that the agent is going through, because remember, the agent is an entity that thinks about the steps that need to happen to arrive at the correct answer. So it says here to calculate the average salary, salary, I need to find the mean of the base salary column. So it actually knows already, because it has that information. If you go to salaries, it looks for the base salary column, right? That's what the agent is doing in the background, the column in the data frame. So it finds that, the action step, now it has to do something. It calls internal function REPL, okay, to start doing some calculations, to essentially run Python code with the data frame and get all that information and start adding and do what it needs to do. And the action input, this is the input. It goes and gets the base salary column and calculates the mean, and found the observation to be this number, 9,312 and 1.65, etc. And then it formulates a thought. See, this is the process. This is a smart, intelligent agent. The thought is, I now know the final answer. And the final answer, it says the average salary is 9,312.17 cents. And there we go. And then finish chain. And then we get the actual object returned to us, because that's what we wanted to see. And it gives us the input, what is the average salary, and the output, the answer, the final answer, which is this. The average salary is that value. And there you have it. So we've created a CSV agent just like that. And we can ask other things, such as how many rows are there? We're going to see entering new agent executor, the thought process to find out number of rows in data frame. I can use the shape attribute of the data frame, which returns a tuple with the number of rows and columns. Action, run some Python code, and action input df.shape, and it gets 10, 29, and 8, and then data frame has 10,291 rows. Okay, and then of course it returns that answer along with the input field there. So now you're able to converse with your data, to interact with CSV data. You can see the power of all of this, right? Very good. Now play around with this, run a few questions. Of course, I would like you to have your own data, your own CSV file that you may have in your organizations to start playing around with this and building this AI agent. So in the next video, what we'll do is we're going to take this to the next step to add a little bit more of prompting so we can get more out of our agent. The way things are right now, they work fine, but it's important to realize that when we're dealing with large language models, as we are, prompting is very important. So if you want to get the best answers or the best results out of your agents, which are connected to the large language model, as you see, you need to give some prompting so that you can get or direct the agent, in this case, to the conclusion or the result that you want it to give to you. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a few prompts for our CSV. First of all, we're going to create the one here called CSV prompt prefix. So the prefix prompt that we're going to be using for our agent. So essentially says, first set the pandas display options to show all the columns, then get the column names, then answer the question. Okay, that's the first prefix prompt here. And then I have the suffix prompt, which is the later, the last one to the right, essentially. Okay. All right. So in this case here, I'm going to just add here. So it's preloaded, and you can play around with this and do all sort of things to make sure that it is something, a suffix, or in this case, it is a prompt that relates to your data, or what is it that you want to get out of your agent, or your agent to get out of the CSV file. Okay. So it says here, before giving the final answer, try another method. Always, so we can emphasize what we want it to see, right? Always, before giving the final answer, try another method. Then reflect on the answers of the two methods you did and ask yourself if it answers correctly the original question. So we're prompting, making sure that we give more of a prompt so that the agent, in this case the large language model as well, know the parameters per se that they have to be aware of. Importantly here, if you're not sure, try another method. but also format 4 figures or more with commas. This is just formatting. So you can add anything you want to direct your agent. Also, if the methods tried do not give the same results, reflect and try again until you have 2 methods that have the same result. If you still cannot arrive to a consistent result, say that you're not sure of the answer. Now, see, this is prompting. This is making sure again that the large language model with the AI agent here, they don't hallucinate. In this case, they don't start making stuff up, making information up because they're not able to find the answer. It's very, very important because you always want, obviously, to get the right answers. So there's a lot here. I'll encourage you to go and read more. And remember, you can use this as the basis and you can make it even better to make sure that it is in conformity with your requirements for what you're building. It says here, do not make up an answer or use prior knowledge. Only use the results of the calculations you have done. And so now that we have these prompts, prefix and suffix prompts, that means then we can do something like this. I can create a question. For instance, which grade has the highest average base salary, and compare the average female pay versus, this should be male pay. All right. The prefix prompt, the suffix prompt, and we have the actual question, which means I can come here. Let me go ahead and just copy that and comment that out there. At the bottom here now, instead of doing that, I can just pass whenever I call, invoke in this case, to run our agent. I'm going to start by putting CSV plus question and then the suffix. So the question is the middle, which means this question here, which grade has the highest average base salary? It's going to be in the middle. So we have the prefix, which is what we created here. First, set the Panda display options and so forth. And then suffix is the latest or the last one that is concatenated. So now when we call invoke, when we run our agent, it's going to have more context, more prompt. It will know what are the parameters it needs to be aware of to get the best result. Now, let's say print result. I can just say f-string here. And because I know this is a dictionary, I can just go ahead and say output just to get the actual output. Because if you remember correctly, if you look here, we have the input object that comes out and we have the output field to get the actual result. I'm going to run. Okay, so now entering new agent executor. So you can see it's going to think about what's going on and it will continue to think until it gets the right results. Look at that. And there we go. Because we told it to always give us the explanation on the explanation of how it got to that result, it has explanation here that comes back. So let's go ahead and read more to see the thought process that our agent went through. It's a lot, and that's exactly what agents are supposed to do. So the question, which grade has the highest average base salary, and compare the average female pay versus male pay. So it goes through the thought. I should first set the Panda display. Aha, you remember we said it. That was the prefix prompt, right? To set the Panda display options to show all columns. So it knows exactly what it needs to do because we prompted to do so, and then get column names to work with. And then of course, action, Python REPL to start in these passing this input, which is the code, pass all that it needed, and observation name error PD is not defined. That's okay. And goes to thought again. I need to import pandas and PD first before setting the display option. Look how beautiful this is. So it goes in and imports pandas as PD because it needs that information. It needs to run that code. It needs to import that library in order to get to the right conclusion. Ah, look how beautiful this is. And then observation, there's really nothing. And then thought. Now that Panda is imported, I can set the display options and get the column names to work with. There we go. and then it goes back to action, runs some code, and it has Panda PD set options and does what it needs to do. And thought, now that display options are set, I can proceed to get the column names and work on finding the answer to the question. All right, action again goes to code and passes in the def columns, and observation, we can see the whole code that went through to get that information. So it goes to index, goes through department, and department name, division, gender, and all of this, which is exactly what's needed, and continues. I now have the column names to work with. It has grade and base salary because that is part of the question, right? And so I will proceed to calculate the average base salary per grade and compare the average female pay versus male pay. Look at that. And goes through the process again. So it's thinking through and getting information and thinking through and go back to what something wasn't right and to all of that information, all of that. The whole process, we don't have to do anything. Our agent is doing what it needs to do. And then we have the action input here. It goes by group, grade, base salary, find the mean. So now it's doing the actual calculations and then finds all that information, as you can see here, the grade. And now that it says name base salary, the length is 99, type is float, all that information internally. And then I have calculated the average base salary for each grade. Now I will compare the average female pay versus male pay. And that's all that calculations. And thought again, I now have the average base salary for each grade, blah, blah, blah. I will compare those results to find out which grade has the highest salary, base salary, and how the average female pay compares to male. And goes through all of that. Look at this. The final answer gives us M2, right, has the highest average salary, base salary, and gives us the value. On average, male employees earn $92,382, while female employees earn $87,497. Okay, this is not good, of course, but that is the information we're getting from our data, right? And then, of course, gives us the explanation because we asked for that. To answer the question, I used the grade and base salary columns. I calculated the average base salary for each grade using the def group by, right? This allowed me to determine that grade M2 has the highest average base salary. Additionally, I compared the average female pay versus the male pay using there you go. We have the formula decode there, command, which gave me the average salaries for each gender. And then by analyzing these results, I was able to provide a clear and accurate answer to the original question. So then we have that final explanation and the final result. And just like that, we have our agent giving us exactly what we want, but we can see that it went through the process of thinking, deciphering everything that it needs to decipher to get the right result. All of this you can see because we added even more. We made our prompt prefix and the suffix along with the question so that the agent knows exactly what it needs to do. And it followed exactly that, as you can see. So we know that this is working fine, and that's great. So the next thing I'm going to do here, just for fun, so you can actually have a user interface, we're going to take this and add a user interface, meaning we will be using Streamlit, which is a symbol framework that allows us to create very simple user interfaces in Python so we can see things in action visually. Because for right now, all we see is just the console, which is fine for what we want. So I want to see the results visually. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is I'm going to go to requirements and I'm going to put here Streamlit so that you have, okay, I don't need to put the version because either one works. And so let's go back here. Let's say pip install requirements.txt. So we should reinstall everything or pass around and then be able to have Streamlit installed. So once we have Streamlit, then it's really easy to take this application to the next level. So let's comment this out. And so for Streamlit, really, the first thing I'm going to do is to import Streamlit as ST, so we can use ST to start doing what you're going to see here. So I'm going to create a title as such, okay? And what I'm going to do also, so that you can see, let's go ahead and quickly run this application now. You say Streamlit, run, and then the name CSV Agent.py. Hit enter. You can see that we have database AI agent with LangChain, which is exactly what we have as a title there. So it's very simple, okay? Okay, so let's continue here. So next thing here, I'm going to actually write again. I'm going to say dataset preview. So for dataset preview, I'm going to just say st again that write and pass in the head. So this is going to give us, as you know, just the 5 rows. So if I save this, and I'm going to say always rerun, so we're going to see the preview of our dataset in a second. And there we go. Just like that, you can see it gives us the preview of a dataset. If you've never used Streamlit before, it's really fun. You should really take a look at it and consider. Gives us those 5 rows, which is exactly what we want. So now I'm going to go ahead and get the user question. So in this case here, I'm going to say ask a question and give a text input. I'm going to add some predefined inputs text there. So I'm going to save this and come here. It's going to run real quick and show what we've just added. Okay, so we have data preview, and then we have the ask a question, and right away we have that question that was added there. Okay, because that's what we added here. All right, so all we need to do now is to run the actual agent once a button is clicked. Create a button here, and then I have a query. So we pass the prompt prefix and the question of course is going to be received from a text input here, whatever it's in there, or we can add our own, as you will see. And then we have the CSV prompt as well, and then we just invoke passing in the query. So the same thing we did before, except now we're going to get those results and pass them as a markdown output, as you see here. Now I can go ahead and say run query. So it's going to run the query, run everything, and in the back here it's going to go through the whole process, the thought process, as you can see. And once all of this is done, we should see the result at the bottom here. And there we go. So grade 0 has the highest average balance, base salary of that is the amount, and then the average pay is 92,000, and the average female pay is that. Of course, we have some issues with formatting, but that doesn't matter. You can always go and check it out and fix yourself. But there you go. It makes sense. It works. You can say which department makes the most on average. Let's see if that's going to work. Let's run. Okay, the department that makes the most on average is IGR. Okay, so it's going to be one of those departments that we can't quite see from here because we only have 5. But yeah, there we go. And explanation, I use the department base, columns, and so forth. All right, I can see and give me the actual amount. All right, and there you go. The department that makes the most, of course, is IGR with an average base salary of 165. It was just something I wanted to show you how to do, so it's easier to actually show to stakeholders and show to your colleagues of things that you're working on and things that they can use. You can also deploy this. I'm not going to go over that because you can do some research on how to do that, so that you can send a link to somebody and that they can also start running, preview this application, this AI agent interacting with CSV data. So we just finished looking at CSV agent. So we're able to interact with CSV data, and we're able to export that and create data frames. And of course, we use the OpenAI model as the main model and LangChain. But we're also able to learn how to add custom prompts, in this case prefix and suffix prompts, along with the actual question, and package that up to then pass through the CSV agent, which allowed then the CSV agent to have more context information about on how it should work, it should interact with the large language model to get to the correct result. And we're able to see the whole thought process that now our agent was able to go through, which was different from the way we did before, without the refinement of the prompt. Right now, you're able to really go out there and take any CSV file that you have in your organization or at your business and start using LangChain, of course, create agents that are able to extract all of the information from the CSV file, and you're able to use natural language to pass through your agent, and then your agent's able to interact with the CSV data or tabular data. So what I want you to do is to take this to the next level. As I've been saying, add your own data or find your own CSV files that you can work with and just play around and see the magic happens. It's very, very exciting. All right, I'll see you next. Okay, so I hope this was helpful. I hope you were able to see this very simplistic or simple in a sense use case, but powerful at the same time, because it's a valid real world use case that perhaps most likely actually you'll be able to use in your organization, in your business, or in any of your projects that you may be working on. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you can see the power of using AI agents that can converse with your data, in this case, CSV files, which is a total different format. But when you ask those questions about whatever you want to know about that CSV file data, you get that response as text, as a human readable response, which is really, really awesome. All right. If you like this content, I would appreciate if you would leave a like, thumbs up, and leave a comment so I know what else you would like to learn. And also, if you are not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. As you see, we have a lot of information here in this beautiful, amazing YouTube channel. And also, this is a mini course from a larger course where I go deeper into database AI agents, where you learn how to interact with databases, CSV files, and many other forms of storage, data storage. So if you're interested in that, I will leave the link in the description so you can go and check it out. Thank you so much for your time. Till next time, be well.